you said you have 6 hives right now. Do you have empty hives to fill still? Because it is still bee season.
It is bee season. I have one more, but if I found a couple more swarms that somebody else didn't need, I would quickly go and get another box. I would love to have 10. That would be great.
Okay, welcome to another episode of the Essential Craftsman Podcast. I'm Nate. This is a fun episode. I think it's the first time that I have a guest who's more nervous than I am. And that's my mom. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Nate.
So we're doing this for Mother's Day, and hopefully this will come out on Mother's Day. So I'm going to go through a list of questions here of some topics that I think are generally very interesting. She's got some pretty unique hobbies. But before we get into that, for maybe a year now, you've been working full-time with Essential Craftsman. Do you want to just walk through what it is you do? Because it's kind of behind the scenes and the new things you've kind of had to learn over the last year are.
Yeah, I've had to learn a lot of new things. Computer skills are not my thing, but I'm fairly competent. But I went from working at an elementary school and to having this new assignment of not editing, but adding cards to videos and shipping items and answering email and taking care of a lot of details that I never had to do before. So it has been new, and it took me a while to learn it. And at the beginning, I wasn't sure that I could, but I've come to that point where I can.
So when you put videos in YouTube, after you upload them, there's kind of a lot of work. You have to fill out the whole description. There's cards and end screens and all the links and notes, and there's actually a lot of stuff. I really hated doing it. I did it for a while, and so I was just so happy when you took over on that. Now, email, you're kind of an old pro, and I want to mention how many years have you been doing daily emails with your best friends?
My friends and I have emailed for 20 years. When I had the internet the first time, at least when we first moved to Oregon, we kept in touch that way, and we still do. But in the last month, we have switched to Marco Polo. So
hold on. You guys would email how many times per day?
Oh, every day. Once a day.
Oh, once a day. Every
single day.
For 19.9 years.
Yes.
Until a month ago, and now it's Marco Polo.
Now we're Marco Polo, which is now 5 times a day.
Oh my gosh. So you're reading and keeping up on the email and helping out with that, which is really helpful. Yes. Now, the viewer who requested this episode, I think his specific question for you was regarding the stresses and blessings of a blue-collar lifestyle. I don't know the best way to pose that question, but how would you answer that?
Well, it's all we've known. It's been really familiar for me for most of my life as well. Blue-collar life, it's kind of feast or famine. It's good. For Scott and I later, it was definitely feast or famine. We were either real comfortable or really worried as the jobs were coming and going. But we were always a team and helped each other out. We kind of covered each other when needed, always. And that was a big key to success of making it that way.
Yeah, it's stressful when you're relying on your hands and, the phone ringing, and there's kind of like a lot of...
And your health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the economy. And I didn't work. And that was a decision that we didn't actually ever have a discussion about, whether or not I was going to work. It's just what we did. Yeah. I stayed home. I worked as hard as he did, and he worked so hard, and we flopped into bed at night so tired. It's how we did it, and it worked very well for us. But it wasn't without some stress, and it also wasn't without some really good payoff.
Yeah. What's it like looking back at that now? If you gave advice to your younger self, it seems like usually the answer is, well, I'm really happy for a lot of people. I'm really happy where I am now, so I wouldn't change a thing. Is that? But I know there were a lot of stressful years, like everybody has. So everybody
has stressful years. It's hard, but I would say the same thing. I wouldn't change anything about that. It was. I do wonder if I should have encouraged Scott more for an education. Yeah. He's so smart. He could have done anything. But we had started into this path, and there was no backing up. At least it seemed to us. Lots of people are able to back up and say, wait, we need to reevaluate where we're headed. But we didn't. We just kept on going. And it worked. But it was hard. My dad He was an investor and a real estate person, and did a lot of deals and a lot of construction and a lot of business building. And then my stepfather was a sign painter back when signs were hand lettered by hand.
That is a whole trade that's basically
Gone.
gone.
It is completely gone. And my mother and my stepfather, Bill Comerford, met in a sign shop.
Oh, really?
He was hand lettering signs, and she worked there, and they shared that workspace together. And this was back when you climbed up on those ladders up on billboards and hand painted them. Of course, none of that is done now, but he was always up on a ladder.
So those billboards were painted onto the billboard at the location. It wasn't like painted in the shop and then rolled out or anything.
They would make a big pattern with a chalk bag and a little stencil, a little thing that scored the paper, and then they would use chalk and it would outline the letters.
Oh.
Then they would take that to the site, put it up there, chalk it out, and then they had a pattern and it was hand painted in. Now this is the way I'm remembering.
Yeah.
Whether that's true or not, I don't know.
But
I was very young.
all signs are big billboards. I'm sure
right.
a lot
He
of
did
them
a lot of
happen.
lettering. He did a lot of car lettering, boat trim, car details. He did everything.
Wow.
Yeah. It was
so there's
good.
like a sign shop and a bunch of, like any other shop, a bunch of employees sort of painting.
Yeah, I don't
and
remember how many
doing work.
employees, but the
they
shop
met there as both employees of this shop.
And that was silkscreen was kind of a big thing. They would make, I don't know what kind of signs, but maybe it was political signs. I don't know. But they would make a pattern, and then they were run through this equipment that would press the sign, and then they would come out here, and we would take them out and hang them up all around to dry. Yeah,
So-
that was another part of it.
So he also painted as a hobby, like for artistic purposes
Yes.
at home, or was that also a part of his business?
Well, I have possession of one painting that he did, and it's beautiful. It's a still life, and my mother gave it to me. And he stopped painting in aesthetic painting when he married her, because that was her thing.
Oh.
And he, at least that's what I'm told, that he didn't want to compete with that. And she's a fabulous artist, and pursued that the rest of my life. So the smell of paint has been around my whole life.
So when she was working in that, so we're talking about my grandma now, your mom.
Yeah.
It's still Mother's Day, so that we're allowed to still talk about this.
Yeah.
Now, she was doing sign painting work as a job, and also even at that point painting artistically.
Oh, yes. We had a little studio in our house.
Wow.
And in the afternoons when we were doing whatever, she was painting landscapes.
And how old is she now?
She's 87.
And how much painting is she doing these days?
She's there right now. She's there every day painting.
She has, I don't know how you quantify paintings. I mean, truckloads of paintings or container loads of paintings, but tons.
Closets, a room,
full.
a couple of rooms full.
Yeah.
And she has lots of her work in several art galleries.
Yeah,
throughout.
she's really successful.
Yeah.
This is not like a lot of grandmas paint as a fun hobby,
right.
but this was her career.
Right.
She's done murals all over our hometown here that
Right.
are still standing and beautiful, and she's been a local,
kind of a local painting legend.
you can't say celebrity, but
Right.
certainly like the big local
Right.
dog, Southern
Our
Oregon.
Public library was built, I don't know, 25 years ago, and she did a beautiful mural on the inside of that. So that is the most well-preserved
Yeah.
mural, and it will always be
yeah.
there. And the library just now is been taken over by a different entity, but they've left the mural there, and it shows all the different occupations of the county over the years, and it's really beautiful. I'm so glad they kept it.
Do you think she would? We talked about making a video with her to just show some of her painting. I wonder if she'd be up for that.
I've asked her about it, and she said, yeah, I could do that. I think she could.
She's really a neat lady.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to turn the page here. Maybe 6 months ago, you went to Texas, met a bunch of Texans, and
Yeah.
what was that like?
That was so fun. It was so fun. I had never been to Texas, and that place is so big. We would drive and drive and drive, and it seemed like we never got anywhere. But we did meet some wonderful people, and they were so friendly and helpful. And we met at the Good of the Land Festival. It was really great, and met 2 or 3 different people that I spent a couple hours with, just visiting and talking about their life and their kids, and it was really nice.
More than any other state I've been to, Texas feels like its own country. And I know
Yeah.
it was for a while.
Yeah.
But it really just feels like it.
It
When
does.
you're there, it's like there's no question that it's a completely different
It's
animal.
completely different. We got to go to the Alamo, which we hadn't been to before,
Yeah.
and had good people there teaching about that.
You've been around, and Dad's been interested in old tools and all of these types of things for long enough that being at the Good of the Land Festival was not new, seeing the tools and machinery and everything. But at the same time, it was kind of new because that's a high concentration of people who are really interested in blacksmithing and anvils. And I don't know, you have a small handful of those folks here, but what was that like, seeing a bunch of people all with exactly the same interests as you and Dad?
It was great. It was very familiar. I knew what they were doing. I knew what their equipment was. There was a beekeeper there, so I got to go and talk to him and watch how he does some things. That was great. There was lots
he bring
of people
bees to the?
He brought hives. He just brought hives and set them up there so you could see how they worked. And
is that just that's the term for the empty case? Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really fun, and there was equipment there that I was not familiar with at all because I don't do a lot of that. But it was good to see people all making things, all in different ways. They're all making stuff in some way.
That's cool. I want to talk about gifts for a second, and I got two questions. The first is, thinking back over the decades you've been married to Dad, are there special or certain gifts he's given you over Mother's Day or birthdays or Christmas that are especially memorable or stand out even to this day?
Oh, yeah, there are. He's really creative. And over the years, we've had to be, because we didn't always just want to spend all kinds of money on presents. But not this year, about a year ago, I think, it was for my birthday in July, he made me an irrigation pipe that would fit down the rows of tomatoes. And there were holes exactly where the tomato plants were. And he measured carefully and he hooked it up and he went back and forth and got parts. So now you drag that pipe out there, you hook it up, you turn it on, and these little fountains go right onto the plants. And that was for my birthday. And I loved it. It was so fun. And he thought of it. And, he does all his thinking at night, and he thought, and it worked perfectly. That was really fun. He's given me a lot of great stuff. A weed eater, and was one year, and it's not always practical stuff. When I turned 50, he bought a bow, a violin bow that I needed. I had a decent bow. I mean, I had a bow, but it wasn't a good bow. And he got Amanda, my daughter, involved, and she bought this bow, and I treasure that.
Wow.
Yeah. It was more money than I would have ever spent on a bow, but it was nice.
Where do bows come from? Are they like handmade, local type things? Or they
can be.
Are there
they
guys
can be
making violins by hand?
Absolutely, everywhere. This one did not come from there. It came from a shop in
somewhere,
Eugene, I think. I'm not really sure, but was probably handmade someplace. Yeah.
What makes a good bow good? I mean,
no, how it springs and how flexible it is, but I'm not enough of a player to really know. But
you can imagine it with like the violin, because there's so much going on there. But
right.
I don't know. There's probably a lot going on.
There is a lot going on. And what I hear is that serious players, they're more concerned about their bow than they are about their violin.
Really?
Yeah. There's more action, and there's more happening with your bow than you would guess. Yeah.
Wow. That's really surprising.
Yeah.
All right. And then the second part about gifts, you are extra good at giving gifts to little kids. What do you say to dads, especially who have little kids or grandpas? How is it that you're able to think of little nifty doodads that little kids just love? What
I don't know.
How does that happen for you?
Well, when they're talking to me and they're playing, I'm watching them the whole time and thinking, oh yeah, they need that. They need that. Whether it's a little bug catcher or whatever. And then I just file that away in my mind, and then sometimes I even write them down. But I don't just, it's not very spur of the moment. I think about it, and I also watch and pay attention.
So you're kind of always paying attention and thinking, what does this little kid need?
But it's hard, because if you're not around those kids a lot, some of the grandkids don't live here. And so I don't know them as well. And that's a little harder. And so those kids, I give them a little different deal.
Yeah.
I get on Amazon with them.
Now, that makes sense. You see a kid chasing bugs or frogs, that you can kind of say he might not have a net or a little container or I don't know, some kind of like tongs. What are insect tongs
Ooh,
called?
yeah, that's a great thing. I don't know what those are
Etymology.
called, but they need one of those. Yeah. Yeah.
For picking up bugs that
Bugs.
you don't want to touch, which is
Yes.
most of them for me. All right, great. Now let's talk about beekeeping a little bit. This is a hobby you picked up how long ago?
I'd say 10 years ago.
And what was
Yeah.
what was it that got you like thinking you should do bees? 10 years ago.
Well-
That seems like a huge kind of lifestyle. But
Yeah.
you kind
But
of
there
jumped
again,
in.
I'd been thinking about this. So truth is, I used to catch flies as a child and keep them for pets. And I'd make little boxes for them and put them in there because I was at that sign shop all the time where it smelled like paint and there were flies in there and I would catch them.
How'd you catch them?
I don't remember. Jars up against the window, jars.
Oh, okay.
So I would keep them. So about 10 years ago, Scott was especially busy. He was gone a lot. And I remember calling him and saying, hey, what do you think if I order a bunch of bee equipment? I don't really know what it is or how to do it, but I'm thinking about doing that. What do you think? And he said, yeah, do it. And that's how it started.
How do you even know what to order? Did you
I
find
didn't know.
somebody who kind of was
No.
able to show you the ropes?
No, I got a catalog and it just said, here is a beginner kit.
Oh, a kit.
And
Okay.
I just bought that. And then from there, you meet people. And I do know a lot of people now. And I also belong to a local group of beekeepers. And we get together monthly and talk and share ideas and solve problems.
What
Yeah.
if you had to rate yourself on a scale of like beginner to master beekeeper being a 10, how far along are you in like understanding beekeeping?
I think I'm at about a 5. I think I'm halfway there.
Oh,
And that's 10 years. It's taken a long time. And every year I learn something that I had no idea was true.
oh, really?
Yeah, there's a steep learning curve and it goes on a long time.
What's
yeah.
something you learned recently about bees?
Well, last night it's April. And so there's bee swarms here happening all of April and most of May. There was a swarm of bees flat on a stop sign. They covered up the word stop. It was just covered. And I had never seen that. I thought they would always be hanging in a ball. That's the
Wow.
only way I've ever done it. And it was tricky, but we got them. But it was tricky.
How did you find out about the bees on a stop sign? You didn't just stumble into them?
No, because it's like finding anvils. I remember you guys telling
Yeah.
people, do you tell everybody you know? And that's what I do. I tell every person I know, hey, April's coming. Make sure if you see a swarm of bees or if your neighbor has one, you call me. So that's how I find out most of them. Also, our bee group sends out an email. As soon as somebody sees a swarm or gets notice of one, an email goes out and whoever wants it or is available goes. But this one came from we actually have a bug guy, believe it or not, who comes and sprays.
Like a pest
A
control
pest
guy?
control guy, a friend of ours, and Jeff called and I've told him, you know, in your business, you're going to run across bees. So he calls me every year.
Yeah.
Okay, there's one on this address. And I said, okay, I'm on my way. And so I went there. Yeah.
So if you don't understand bees, what happens is over the winter they kind of stay put. They're not
Right.
hibernating, but they're staying
There's
in their
just,
hive.
yeah. Mhm.
And are baby bees being born, and is the hive like growing all
Not
winter?
much. It's pretty much just in lockdown.
So
Yeah.
why do they swarm? So when they swarm, the hive has gotten too big, and so a group of them they hatch a new queen, and a group of them leaves. Is it kind of like sheep and lambs, where in the spring is when all the baby bees are born?
Yeah,
or is that
exactly.
it?
And they'll lay eggs and produce baby bees all summer.
Oh.
And some over the winter, just not very much. But, you know, leading up to this time of year, the light is longer, the days are warmer, they're out foraging, and they're reproducing really fast. And the numbers are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and pretty soon some people have to leave. And so they send the old queen out with, I don't know how much of the population, maybe half, a third, I have no idea. And they leave, and they usually don't go very far, maybe 20 feet, 100 feet, and they light somewhere in a tree or on a fence. And they will stay there anywhere from a few hours to a day.
Oh.
And they're sending scouts out, and those scouts are looking for a suitable place. And so what we do is we just interrupt that, and they're happy about it. If we can just interrupt that and they're there, we just introduce them to the box, and they're thrilled.
Oh.
Yeah. And so we just can easily put them in a new situation.
Yeah.
And then take them to wherever you want them. And then they set up a whole new colony.
So the bees that landed on the stop sign, they're flat, covering the sign, and somewhere in there is a queen.
Somewhere in there. Mhm.
And normally they're kind of a clump, and so you can kind
Right.
of get the
And so if
clump.
it's in a clump and it's hanging off a tree, it's so easy to just clip that branch off and
Yeah.
very carefully lower the whole thing into your box. But this wasn't like that. And it was 10 feet tall, and our ladder was too short. So we did another thing, which I recently learned is possible. I took the box. As soon as I drove in the driveway, they're following me because the truck had all this equipment in it, and they could smell it. So there was tons of bees in the
They could
truck.
smell the bee equipment.
The
you
bee
mean?
equipment,
Like,
which had honey in it
wax
and
all that.
smells. So I just moved my hive box over to the bottom of the stop sign and set it right there.
Oh,
And now there's 200-300 bees going around there, and then I just left it there. And another guy was helping me. He was worked at this medical facility that was right there, and he actually wanted them. So the etiquette is this: the first person that gets there gets them.
yeah,
However, the other etiquette is I have 6 hives.
yeah.
I don't need another one. He didn't have any.
Oh,
He's a new beekeeper. He had a box, he had gloves, he had his stuff, and he wanted them. And I said, "This is perfect. I'll help you get them." And so it was really nice. And he sent me a note this morning that he's so happy. They're at his house, and it was all successful. But anyway, we put a box there and hoped that they would just fly.
wow.
And they did. So we went back at 5:00, and they were, I would say 50% of them were in the box. And then he said, I want to do this. Okay. So he climbed up on the ladder, which was too short, but I held it.
Yeah.
And he took my little brush, and we held up a cardboard box. And he just swept them right into the box, all the remaining ones that he could. And then he handed me the box, and I shook them into the hive.
Uh-huh.
And then we still left it there until probably 10 o'clock last night. And then he went home and gathered up the whole thing, ratchet strapped it shut so that nothing could tip over, took it home, and they're good.
Wow.
And then they wake up in the morning and they're ready to go.
Wow. So he's a new beekeeper.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're like kind of his new bee mentor.
Maybe. I don't know. I will refer him to somebody who knows much more about it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was fun to be able to pass that on a little bit. We're always wanting people to, yes, if somebody wants to know, we want to help them. Yeah.
Has beekeeping changed at all, like over the last 1,000 years, or is this just kind of
Not much.
basically how it's been done forever?
I think it's basically how it's been done. I understand they used to use what's called skeps. It would be a rope or clay, a pot that was round. But then somebody discovered that bees like a certain amount of space.
Oh.
And the Langstroth hive is the kind that is what we now use.
Oh.
It's all those spaces in there are the exact amount of space, and the frames are an exact amount of space. And they've discovered the bees want this exact number of square inches, and the hive is that. And so no, there's other things that people try, top bar hives and other things, but I think most people, and I think all commercial beekeepers use this basic box.
Yeah.
Can't
be improved.
It's perfect.
Are bees like, with cattle, you kind of pick what breed of cattle you want before you start your herd? Is that how bees are, or is it just sort of like bees are bees?
The first time I got bees, I bought them from a beekeeping supply. And you can do that.
Oh.
You can go there and they say, do you want these kind, or these kind? And I didn't know. I said, I don't know. What do you think? And they told me which ones. Since then, I've never bought any. I just catch swarms, and I have no idea what kind they are. Huh. The ones that you buy probably are healthier and stronger and bred to be a little more gentle.
Oh.
And that's certainly true. Sometimes you get a swarm of bees that are just nasty.
Oh.
They're just terrible. But, if you leave them alone and let them take care of themselves, it's okay.
What are killer bees?
I don't know. Africanized bees. I know they're bad news.
Oh, is that Africanized and killer bees are all kind of the same thing?
And I don't really know if I'm truthful about this, but I think it's just a really aggressive sort of bee that can be very deadly.
Yeah.
And can hurt people badly.
They make honey and do all the normal bee activities.
But they're super aggressive.
They're just so aggressive.
And there's benefits to that. They are very aggressive, and they're strong and healthy, and maybe they produce more honey or something. I'm not sure. But I've had a few hives that I thought, wow, I've got stung 20 times. Now, whether that's what it was, I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know.
So certain hives have stung you more than other hives.
Absolutely. And some hives, I've been working in there, and they don't even seem to notice. So I don't know.
Wow. So that's a big probably barrier for a lot of people into getting bees because they don't like getting stung by
Right.
me, and I'm in that camp because I've been stung 4 or 5 times, and it really hurts.
It
but
really hurts.
I see you getting stung, and kind of like, is it the kind of thing that just you do get used to it,
Yes.
or is it just you're just
It's
kinda
right
tough?
here.
Really?
I had never been stung before, and that first one, I just have to get stung here pretty soon because I have to know what this
So
is.
you had never been
No.
stung before you got into
no,
beekeeping? What?
No,
Really?
no, not that I remember anyway.
Wow.
But that first one happened right here, and wow, it's really scary.
Yeah.
And then another one happens, and then 20 more happen, and then 5 more happen, and at least now I don't react with this panic adrenaline surge. Now it's like, oh, ouch. But I was thinking about something. I had a guy helping us some years ago. He was so helpful, and he came out and was showing me some stuff, and he brought his kid who was about 7. And his kid had grown up with this, and his kid was running around playing, and pretty soon he walked up and he said, "Hey, Dad, I just got stung." Oh, well,
wow.
okay. Well, be more careful then. Stay away from here. Okay.
Jeez.
And that was his reaction at the age of 7. I just got stung on my face.
Oh my gosh. That would have wrecked Christmas for one of my kids.
Right.
That'd be like, you
Right.
never heard the end of it.
And I thought, okay, I want to be him. I want to be like that.
Oh, okay. So you kind of just decided.
I just decided, okay,
yeah.
I
But
can
do
do
you
it.
feel like it's less painful now than the first, 4 or 5 stings? Do you feel like your body's acclimated?
No, I think it still hurts really bad.
It's still the same.
Yeah.
You're just,
But
you're not
the
as
fear
afraid of
isn't
it.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about getting stung by a yellowjacket? Is that different?
I've never been stung by a yellowjacket, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I've been stung by a hornet, I think, and that was bad. Yeah.
Do you watch Coyote Peterson?
Yes. I love Coyote Peters.
This is a YouTuber who's like he's a young crocodile hunter, emphasis on insects. Neat guy, and he stings himself with every venomous insect. And bees would be just like a light snack. He's putting tarantula hawks and bullet ants and everything else.
Yeah.
So
he's really great.
you said you have 6 hives right now. Do you have empty hives to fill still? Because it is still bee season.
It is bee season. I have one more, but if I found a couple more swarms that somebody else didn't need, I would quickly go and get another box. I would love to have 10. That would be great.
Every year you're getting new bees. So what happens?
Yeah.
Do hives die?
Yes, and I don't know why. There's theories about colony collapse, and I don't know. I just know that I've heard that if you get through the winter with 50% of your hives, you're doing pretty good.
Oh, really?
So those first 2 or 3 times I lost a hive, I was devastated. And then I thought, that's okay. I'm going to keep doing it. This last year, I only went into the winter with 3, and all 3 of them were thriving when the winter ended. So I don't know what the difference is.
So conventional wisdom, master beekeepers will tell you you're going to lose. You can lose up to half of your hives. It just is part of beekeeping.
It's part of it. You're going to lose some.
Huh.
Sometimes they will starve to death. You didn't feed them enough. They couldn't forage enough. The weather was terrible. Sometimes I've had a hive die that the whole box was full of honey. So I don't know.
And it died.
And it died. Or it left. I'm not sure which. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think it died because it was full of dead bees. So
I happened to click on a YouTube video a day or 2 ago. YouTube must have been reading my mind about what I've been thinking about because you've been talking about bees. And it was footage of a hive of bees killing their queen. They were like swarming and and he was explaining it, but the bees decided they didn't like that queen, and they were just all
killing it,
pressed around her, killing her. He had just introduced the queen, and so he's like, so I got to rescue this. I got to get this queen out of here and get a new one. And he kind of dug in there. Have you ever seen anything like that?
No. Huh. A lot of people they go in and they look for the queen and study it, and I am not there. I look in there. If there's eggs. Yeah. That's all I need to know.
Yeah.
If there's eggs happening, then I'm going to leave it alone.
Then that means the queen's doing her thing. Yeah. No need to bug her. So if someone's interested in beekeeping, is this the kind of thing that country people can partake in because you need 5 acres?
No.
How much space do you need? What do you really need in order to be able to keep bees?
I could be out of line here, but I think you can keep bees anywhere. Anywhere. Are your neighbors going to know if you have a hive? Maybe they look over your fence. Then some cities have ordinances. You can't have more than 3 hives, but nobody can keep bees out of town. Bees are there. Bees are going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, if you have 40 hives in your tiny backyard, that's probably not very nice.
But
to your
a
neighbors.
hive of bees or two in the back of somebody's yard in a regular subdivision is the bees are fine. They
Bees
can
are fine.
find food
Oh, yes.
and you can keep bees
Yes.
in the city. Like
However, just to be polite, you should go to each of your neighbors and say, what would you think? Would you be okay if I kept a hive of bees?
Yeah.
Most of the time, people say, yes, that would be so great. I would love that.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's cool. And then a starter kit with a hive and a smoker and some
hive,
gloves.
smoker, gloves, suit.
That works.
Some frames. Yes. Little tool. And then make a phone call to go to your local bee club.
Yeah.
Every town, I think, would probably have a group of people that get together and we welcome those. We welcome people. We love it.
Can you do bees and not? It seems like capturing the honey or harvesting the honey, whatever. What's the term?
Extracting the honey.
It seems like that's a whole separate challenge
is.
because it's so messy. Can you
Yes.
kind of just
No.
keep bees as a pet, or is there
Yes.
no point?
You can. And you don't have to pull the honey off.
Okay.
You can just let them have it all. In fact, they would love it. There would be more in there that they would actually need. But I have found honey, it's a real problem. It's like I don't have the tools because I have somebody else that does.
Oh.
I have somebody who has the most beautiful setup.
Oh.
And all of us use him. We take our frames of honey at the end of the season. They're all packed full. And we take them to him and he runs them through his very nice equipment. And he'll call you and say, okay, come down here with 3 cases of jars.
Oh, really?
Okay. And you go down there and he sits and he fills your jars and you put your lids on and you go home.
Wow.
I don't have any of that equipment. And so when he's done doing that, I don't know. Then
Yeah.
somebody else is going to need to get some of that nice equipment.
Wow.
Lots of people probably buy that nice equipment and have it in their own shop and just do it for themselves.
But
I don't
it takes
have any
more
of that.
space and
Space,
money and he's just
And
set up.
he's so set up for it. And he's so careful about the door, and the door has to be shut just right.
Why is
Because he
that?
doesn't want any bees coming in, and they will come in instantly.
Oh.
If there's a crack in the door, because you're working with honey, and anytime you leave honey out anywhere, and they can get to it, they're going to come and they're going to tell all their friends.
Oh.
And then you have a million bees there. So he's really careful about the door and the inner door and the other inner door.
Wow.
And keeping it all very careful and clean.
Huh.
Yeah, he's really great.
So that would be for beginners probably really helpful.
So helpful.
Find the person.
Find the people.
What's that called? Honey extraction?
Honey extraction, yes.
Okay. And probably a bee club would be able to point you towards someone who can
Yeah,
help
and
with
actually our bee club has some equipment that you can borrow from them. I've never done it because he does it for me, and I pay him. But usually bee clubs have some equipment that people can check out or use.
What does he charge? How do you charge?
I think it's charged per frame. You know, your frame is this big and honey on both sides. And I don't know, like it's $3 or $3.75 per frame.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you take
What
him
a
along,
bargain.
yeah, it's so worth it. Whatever he charges, it's so worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he like a honey expert in terms of he
Yeah.
knows like what those bees were eating to make that honey? He knows all
and
about
he
it.
has a whole nother gig. He has a thing where he goes out in the spring, sets out traps, and swarms move in to his traps.
Well, what's a trap? What's a bee
It's
trap?
just it's a temporary home. You call it a trap. It sounds like they can't get out. That's not it at all. They just move into it.
How's that different than a hive?
It can be put in a tree or in a bush, anywhere, and it's light and you can move it easily.
Oh.
And he just collects all these bees and puts them in boxes, keeps them all summer, feeds them, extracts the honey at the end of the season, sells the hive and all the bees to the next people that want them. And people get a well-established hive with enough honey in it to carry them through the winter, and they're ready to go.
Wow.
So he's got a nice little thing going.
Is this a business for him or a kind
It's
of
a
hobby
hobby
business?
It's a hobby business. He's retired.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
Is he the bee master
Around
in
here,
town?
yes. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, he's really great.
Oh, it'd be fun to have him on and have
Oh,
him
it
talk
would be
about his
fun.
honey. Actually,
Yeah.
we should just go film his shop.
That would be even better. Yeah.
You think he would be up
I
for
think
that?
he would. I'll ask him.
Yeah, ask him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool. All right. Well, I think that's about everything. Thanks
Great.
for coming on. This is our new this is our podcast. For those of you listening, you can see the video on EC2, and there is also a video on EC2 of you catching a hive 3 or 4 years ago.
A couple years
Do you
ago,
remember
yes,
that?
I do remember that. Mm-hmm.
And maybe it was 2 years ago. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But this sort of procedure of capturing a swarm, you filmed it. You and Dad did. And,
We did.
and you put it in a diaper box. And
Yep.
it went really well, and you
It
dumped
did.
them in your
Yeah,
in the
I've
hive
kind
in
of
the
perfected
backyard.
the.
It's a nice video,
yeah.
and we didn't put it on the main channel because it wasn't quite exactly
Yeah.
tool related. But I hope you guys check it out because you can see a lot of
was
this
good.
there.
There's different procedures. Different people all do it a different way. I've kind of developed a way that works for me. So
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Mom. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll catch you next time.